All right, you're welcome back to Good Morning on Anambra. As you can see, we are all seated for the next segment, and this is our discussion segment where we bring out a topical issue and we dissect it. So today we are looking at sacrifices for better Nigeria. Whose responsibility? This is a topic. This is like a question. Whose responsibility is it to make Nigeria that nation that we all want it to be? A nation that we'll be proud of. We know that a whole lot has been going on in our nation, even outside the country. You see some people, seeing Nigerians as cliques and all that. So today we'll be looking at this topic, the sacrifices for a better Nigeria. Who are the people that will sacrifice, or what do they even need to do to make this nation a better place? We have seated with us this morning as guest, Barrister Chris Arukwe. He's a public affairs analyst. Glad to have you on the show, Barrister.
Good morning and welcome.
And we also have Ichie Michael Dumodo. He's a management consultant. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
And then I have my colleague with me right here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Adjojuko can be saying thank you. Stay and then get to know who the responsibility of rebuilding this country really falls apart, and then the sacrifices on whose responsibility it is. I'm sure I have a role to play in that as the discussion begins.
You have a role to play.
Of course.
Rebuilding our nation, right?
Of course, I have a role.
Okay.
It's a collective responsibility.
We get to that. You tell me your personal role.
Of course.
But let's start with Barrister Chris Arukwe. As you can see, we are talking about rebuilding our nation, making it a better place, because we know that so many people are seeing Nigeria as one of the worst nations in the world, because a lot of things have been happening. But let's quickly talk about Nigeria. Now, looking at this nation right now, you personally, where do you see this nation? Have we deteriorated to the point that, we are as bad as people project us globally?
Well, my personal opinion, I would say that it's an ugly picture that we have. It's palpable. You can touch it on the streets of the nation. You can see poverty in real terms and in physical limits. If we have a nation, if we still have a nation, it is in doubt that we have a nation. We have an agglomeration of people brought together by mere geography and statistics. It doesn't seem to be working, and it needs fundamental surgery, not a piecemeal ad hoc approaches. If the nation is bad, it is really bad enough, because economically, socially, the disorientation is so deep and even cancerous. There are no institutions of the nation that is standing on its feet. The nations are known by their institutions, by their organs, by their constituencies. But in Nigeria, you would venture to say that this institution is working. Our security institutions are dead. What part of it are you not talking about? Tomorrow, you hear the story that's gone global, the JAM situation. We're not going to talk about it, but it's a piece of information that tries to tell you that it's a rock that is deep as it is. I do not see this country emerging victorious from the abyss where we have sunk ourselves, or how we have found ourselves. The optimism, the hope is actually not there. Because each day we put our hands, our filthy hands, into the jelly pack. We want to pick. Everybody wants to take away because it doesn't belong to us. There's no world. It is about me, us, our ethnicity, our basis. It's not working. It's not working. It has never worked, actually. It's just that it's gone from stage of cancerous growth to a stage of terminal determination. This is my view anyway.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's come to you, Ichie. I know it hasn't been this bad from the beginning. So I want us to look at the things that had actually brought us to where we are today. When you talk about deterioration, when you talk about what we are facing right now as a nation.
Thank you very much. Yes, we may say that it has not been this bad from inception. But as we go on, as we grow as a nation, the country is drifting, has been drifting over the years anyway. So it is a very terrible situation that in Nigeria, we socially call a giant of Africa, has become the worst country in the world. There is what this writer said, Olu, Olu, he said that if the citadel of justice is corrupt, what will happen to the body politic? That it will be completely rotten and collapse. So that is what we are seeing in Nigeria. The body politics is corrupt. Everywhere is corrupt. The country is now rotten and it has collapsed. So when we look back from the past leaders, we see, how we came to this mess. Sometimes we had the Civil War. After the Civil War, there was, let me just talk maybe after the Civil War, which I know very well. You have after Gowon, you have I think Shagari. No, you have Murtala Mohammed, late General Murtala Mohammed with Obasanjo. We had them in this as a civilian military government. We saw what happened. It was a kind of, it was tribalistic. It was a military junta. Eventually, Murtala was exited. Obasanjo took over. Stayed for some time, the same problem, handed over to Shagari. The same Shagari, the same corruption. People were talking corruption. But it wasn't that bad those years because Nigerians were still enjoying so many things, So after Shagari, Buhari came and said, no, corruption has reached alarming proportion. So Buhari left, and Shagari left, and Buhari entered. Within the Buhari era, again, IBB came in, and so many, things started getting bad. At the time, people were telling IBB to leave office. He consulted Azikiwe, and Azikiwe said, please, why not hand over to an interim government? Because he said that Nigerian problem has defied all economic measures. So that is how we've been coming up. He handed to interim government. Shoneko couldn't manage the situation. Abacha came in. The 5 years of Abacha was almost terror. And remember that it was during the IBB regime that election was conducted in this country, managed by Humphrey Nwosu, which we assumed to be the best election in Nigeria. And the same head of state said this election was inconclusive, it cannot hold, Abiola was pushed out. So that was when we have the interim government of Sheneko. Then Abacha came and said, go, resign and leave this place. Abacha took over. 5 years of Abacha was almost hell. That is why up to today we're still calling Abacha loot, Abacha this, Abacha that. But knowing fully well that all of them, they looted, not only Abacha. So after Abacha, we have Abdulsalami Abubakar. He came and stayed for a year, and they, talking about his loot, I think it was, they say it was one of the biggest. Abdulsalami handed over to Obasanjo, and Obasanjo's 8 years, all of us, at least as we are staying here, we are all aware of what happened. Most of the roads in Nigeria were no more passable. And he stayed 8 years in the office and left, full of corruption. Handed over to Yar'Adua. Yar'Adua was fair, to be honest with him, President Yar'Adua, because he revised most of the things they did, most of the pump price of petrol, he brought it back to 65 naira then, and so on and so forth. But he was short-lived. When he died, Jonathan took over. And Jonathan was, running like a rattlesnake. He wanted to please these other people without pleasing the other one, that he was thinking he would stay in office forever. And his administration was also so corrupt in terms of some of his ministers and his officers. Somebody like Dezan Madeke, I know she's still on the run up to today. So after President Goodluck Jonathan, we came to Buhari, who almost forced himself into power. And the Buhari administration was a wasted 8 years. Thousands, if not millions of Nigerians were massacred, were killed by Boko Haram, by Fulani headsmen, by bandits, by terrorists. So the 8 years was wasted. Yeah. And after that, we've come to the Tinubu issue saga.
For giving us a rundown of Nigeria presidents, both
I think that is
military and but actually what we are talking about actually is sacrifices for a better Nigeria, because taking from what Barrister Chris said, there's something that he said I'm not in total support, even though I'm not here to give opinion. But then, when we're talking about sacrifices for a better Nigeria, we should understand that the Nigeria that we see today isn't what it used to be. You understand? So now, what sacrifices can Nigerians make? The responsibility on every stakeholder, because I believe that every citizen of this country is a stakeholder in this country on the sacrifices for a better Nigeria.
Yes.
There is hope.
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes.
There should be hope, because for us to be where we are today, bearing in mind that we were somewhere better than where we are today, that means there is hope. So what sacrifices do you think that we, the government, and every person can make in order to get us to that envisaged promised land?
Yeah, if you had followed me properly, I had said that before you do surgery, you do diagnosis.
Yes.
What we actually did was to do a prognosis. What is the situation on the ground? You must agree that is not good enough. And when a sore is bad, you actually may think of surgery. Nigeria requires a surgical intervention, a deep, massive surgery. So whatever I said earlier does not destroy the audacity of hope. And what is that hope? That's why you're here this morning, this early morning. You braved it. You may not have had electricity overnight. Yeah. You may not have some deprivations. Yeah. I had my stuff. I had my challenge of fuel. But yet, the audacity of hope propelled me to come and keep an appointment. The same thing propelled you to come and keep a contract of employment. So what we're saying is that it requires a collectivity of saying that we have failed in this journey. Because 1,000 miles of a journey, just like the time the Israelites began a journey of 40 years, at the time they thought, is this journey not going to end? A couple of times they sat back and reviewed this journey of 40 years. It didn't seem it was going to end. So this is a time we have to do a deep introspection. Are we going to go together? Or some people go on their own path? Or some people continue the journey? Or do we go back inwards? Before our colonial masters came on, drew up a map, and mopped us up together. Here now today is the solution. What are the solutions? There are solutions that will be long-term and short-term and immediate. What do we need to do in the short term and the immediate term? It is about what actually raised up the issue of the poverty indices is actually the removal of the oil subsidy. Was it removed with a think back, with the feasibility and viability appraisals of the wounds it may likely inflict? Globally, every economy of the world is run on subsidy, one type of subsidy or the other. The energy unit affects everything we do. It is the energy that is propelling this station to run. It is the energy that is propelling your family to run. So when you touch it, you have touched at the surgical unit of our livelihood. And you don't need to touch it without proper investigation, articulation, and broad-mindedness. The subsidy has inflicted greater wounds than anything else. Nigerians were beginning to heal one way or the other, but the subsidy removal brought back the sores. What was wrong with the subsidy is the operation of the subsidy, not the subsidy itself. Nigeria requires subsidy in a sector where the natural resources abound in our country. It is our incompetence that has destroyed our refineries, propelled it not to run. It's also our own deceit that even the touted Dangote refinery is not operationalized, while we have also flagged it off as a monumental project that would change the face of the earth. It hasn't done that yet. So I am saying that whoever advised for the removal of the subsidy did not do a close study of what is actually the subsidy. The subsidy is about making sure that this product is priced at levels where the poverty index of our people will not be affected. Those who run the subsidy are the elites. They publish the names of the people who have been paid under the guise of the subsidy. It's paperwork, it's fraud. It's fraud.
So in essence, what you're saying about governance in this part of the world is transparency. That is a lack of
what I'm saying, there are many long-term solutions. Yeah. I'm not a pundit. I'm just saying that removal of oil subsidy has to be reviewed immediately so that we can breathe, so that their knees on our neck can be removed. Thereafter, when we're now breathing up, when we're getting on our feet, we now talk about the shorter term, the longer term solutions. We're going to get to the point where we're going to say, are we going to run this country the way it's been run? Are we going to have an INEC that is irresponsible and irresponsive? Are we going to have a body of election bodies that are run by on the state-by-state basis, like you do in the US? Are we going to say, why don't we have a regional system of governance where we now have 6 geopolitical regions restructured in such a way that some state government will have a right to generate their own electricity and pump it into their own state grid? Not when you generate electricity, you pump it into the national grid and recirculate to the rest of Nigeria. And the people who are in charge will pump your electricity to where they make their own money. So my solution is a bit by bit. You go from the short term, immediate term, then you go to the longer terms. This country requires on a longer term, immediate restructuring. There are no pretenses about it. There are no pretenses. You will see the record given by EU nation about our election process.
Last election, yeah.
They put it down that it wasn't an election, it was a sham. We can't go on like that. We can't go on like that. We can't. And the EFCC is mad in shame. All of the institutions are dead. What you have to do is that when you remove the knee from our neck, you go to the institutions and restructure the institutions.
Okay. All right. Actually, this issue of sacrifices, making sacrifices as Nigerians, it was made by the president on the day he went for the Eid al-Kabir prayers in Lagos. He said that we all need to make sacrifice. And then you saw what was displayed earlier, for the Labour Party candidate, as a presidential Labour candidate.
Mr. P2B.
That sacrifices that we are supposed to make, or the president is calling for, should start with the leaders, just like he has said, Barrister have said now. Now, we also believe that it will start with the leaders. But then again, are we just expecting the leaders to make the sacrifices? What about other actors, other stakeholders? Where do they come in? Because we all are looking for a better Nigeria. We are looking for where everything in the system is working, every sector should be working. We know we're not going to do it overnight, but we need to start somewhere.
Thank you very much. You see, the sacrifice for a better Nigeria certainly must start from the leaders. It is the leadership that organizes. It is the leadership that arranges. It is the leadership that, places things, the way they should be. The government will make the first sacrifice then, because all the resources we have in this country, they go to the government. Like the natural resources, like the petroleum in Nigeria. The petroleum money goes to the federal government. Every other natural resources we gather and we sell, we export, the money goes to the federal government. So they are having the chunk, or the chunk of the money in Nigeria. So that sacrifice will start with them. Other people should be part of it. But before I go to that, I want to tell you that if you look at what the government has done in Nigeria, it makes it very difficult for even others to make that contribution, and it becomes noticeable. But in Nigeria, because Nigerians are hard-working people, they have made many contributions. Most of the cities or the towns that are developed today are developed by the individuals. Let me take where we are staying, the town we are staying, Anambra State, the state, and the capital. The people that have developed this state, building hotels, building industries and the other factories, are the individuals, not the government. You get to Lagos, it is the same thing. Get to Abuja, it is the same thing. It is not the government. The government only contributes a very little quota. Like they say, they are building the road. When they build the Onitsha Enugu Expressway, one side of the road has been built by the Buhari administration, which is not up to 30 kilometers, because it started from Omonia to Oka here, which is Amobia Junction. So that is the little contribution the federal government made over the 8 years. All the other roads are left for the state governors. So that is the problem we're having. The individuals, private sector is the bane of development in Nigeria. They are contributing, massively everywhere. In even the places I've not mentioned, anywhere in Nigeria, it is the public sector, the private sector that is doing this development, building of houses, building of estates, doing this. And on top of all these things, the government will go there and be collecting taxes. So the private sector is contributing. The church also is contributing, because church have many schools in Nigeria today. They build the schools, people go to those schools, they manage them. And they turn out graduates, vibrant graduates, everywhere in Nigeria. Then on the youths equally are trying, because most of the people now, most of the youths are on their own. They are no more waiting for government job, because if you are waiting for government employment, how you might wait for it until eternity. So the Nigerian public is trying what they should do. For instance, let us look at the government and where they have failed, due to corruption, because they are getting so much money that if they apply it to the society, people wouldn't have issues. Let's look at the petroleum products, because when we talk about subsidy, we think it's when we talk of PMS and subsidy, that ends the matter. Let us look at the entire petroleum products, like the AGO, diesel. Diesel is sold in Nigeria today at the rate of, there was a time it was sold at the rate of 800 naira per liter. Now it's about 600 to 700 per liter. You come to kerosene. Kerosene, the common people used to cook and do one or two things. The old women in the villages. It's sold at 800 naira as I'm talking to you in Nigeria today. Then you go to the petroleum, the PMS we are talking about. It's told that the list is about 530 naira per liter. Then you look at, sorry, just a second. You look at even charcoal they use in frying corn and doing other things. Go and price a bag of charcoal and see the cost. So the government takes everything. The government takes every money, every little kobo that comes, that Nigeria generates. They take it and the masses are suffering. So what the government should do is to, the subsidy certainly must be there. Even the subsidy, I look at it as a fraud, because I don't know where they get the figure of if you remove subsidy, PMS becomes 500 naira or 500 and something naira. Where is that figure? Where do they get the figure? And what is this subsidy we are talking about? So the government has been manipulating the people from all these things I listed now. There's no way, nowhere and no way the individual, the Nigerian public is having any relief. And until that is done, or if they don't do that, this country is heading for,
So if I understand what you're saying that we Nigerians, we have little or nothing to do unless the leaders start from the top.
No, we have something to do, and we have done much. Like I said, the development of the towns, development of the cities in Nigeria are done by the individuals, by the private sector. So we have a lot to do, which we are doing. The churches, many of the churches are building schools. Many private people are building schools, building industries. All the industries in Nigeria, all the firms in Nigeria, who are the people that has it? It is the private sector, not the government. So the government has done so little, and they are carrying the money. They are just draining us, picking this money and strangulating the Nigerian public. So, and that must stop. Otherwise, we are not going to make any headway, and the country might, disintegrate.
Thank you so much, Ichie Mike Odumodu, for your submission there. But quickly, since we're still talking about the sacrifices for a better Nigeria, you understand, we've talked about the lack of government presence in most parts, like you stated there. But then, in everything, we need to talk about solution. So I'll come to you, Barrister Chris. What do you think are the solutions? You cited earlier on long-term, short-term, and immediate solutions. So what do you think Nigerians need to expect from the government in order to get our psychic in the right direction?
So now we have a new administration.
New administration.
I might have my opinions about the new administration, which I think I should reserve. But I have spoken about our presidential candidate, or the presidential candidate of Labour had said that the choice, the sacrifices to be made should start from the leadership. I hasten to say he may sound very correct, and apparently very enthusiastic about it, and a lot of people will buy it because it sounds very, very beautiful. The point is that we do not have what they call the peer pressure, the citizens' participation. What is the right of a citizen in a nation that is troubled? If the citizens don't wake up, we will still be in our slumber. Because it is very good and very nice to lead in Nigeria. Because immediately you become a leader, you become affluent, you become wealthy. You live in palaces. The security people guard you. Your life is secure. Your medicals are taken in UK-based hospitals. This is the scenario. So if we citizens, you and I, the ordinary downtrodden people who have knees on their neck, do not rise and say, oh no, this neck pains. We got to do something about it. We got to call the judiciary to order. We got to sit them out. We got to say, EFCC, you haven't done this. You're doing selective. You're doing choice by choice. If the citizens don't wake up in a collective responsibility to require our leaders to do the right thing, how do you justify that our leaders have 200 vehicles in their convoy? And I and one of the citizens do not have one. We have to demand. We have to say that this is wrong. We have to stalemate the use, the power, the authority that our leaders will use vehicles, SUVs, that their fees and civilians' allowances are paid, that our House members and Senate people who represent us in the Senate have salaries as big as what the President of America are paid. It is the citizens that will rise up to that. If we don't do that, there's not going to be any change. Our leaders are comfortable. They live in their comfort zones. It is easy for us to say, show us by example. Who is going to show the example? Who's going to guard the horse? Who's going to guard the king?
Just look at what we have on our television now. They are showing 1,000 convoys following the president.
This is what I'm saying. The citizens can stop it. Look at what is happening in France. You know what is happening in France till this morning. Show it. What is happening in France? Some police officers shot a black immigrant, for that matter. Not a full citizen of the nation. And the nation is in flames, absolute in flames. All the institutions in France has collapsed today. Macron has cancelled all his trips, all the visits, everything. He has done almost everything within his power to quell what is happening in France, just because one fellow died. But we die in our trunks here. We die in our region. We die in our numbers. Nothing happens. Until we see the nation as a collectivity, until the people, not just the youths, because the last election was actually driven by the youth participation. The adult privileged group didn't come out. They were hiding in their closets, in their mansions. They didn't come out to say, this is my support. In Anambra here, we can see that a lot of our rich people, billionaires, were hiding in their mansions. They were afraid to support. That is, citizenry participation is lacking in Nigeria. And that is why ugly can take place.
Well, let me interject you a little bit at this point. You're talking about the citizens taking the bull by the horn.
Yes.
Don't
definitely.
we have a constitution that guides our leaders on the path of delivering what the constitution says? Because when the citizen goes on to do what the constitution ordinarily should do as a guide, you understand, to every leader, then that means are we not asking for anarchy, for jungle justice, where these politicians, our leaders, err?
No, you know the law, each law, that is the ground on the constitution, is there for every one of us. If you go to chapter 4, which guarantees fundamental human rights, it is within your fundamental human right to say no to ugly, to authoritarianism, to power. It is your right to speak against power. It is even my right here to say, I don't like what is happening. I do not, but it's not within my powers to burn ABS. The law guarantees that you can participate in your collectivities, in your numbers, to say that this is wrong. It is only in Nigeria that the people's power is trampled upon with a big boot and a jackboot. The Constitution guarantees that we can move. We can say no. Even in trade union acts, the law guarantees you to picket the institution that is running against labor laws. There's freedom of association.
We know that there is freedom actually, but then again,
but that is why what Peter Obi said is not fully correct. That is why we should not leave it to our leaders. That sacrifice should begin from us. If he said that you are not going to anchor this program this morning, if he's not going to do it, what's going to happen?
It won't hold.
It won't hurt. That is citizens' participation, agitation, provided it is within the laws of the land, the Constitution, freedom of association.
Chris, you witnessed the protests of October 2020. Nigerians were protesting against police brutality. And you saw what met them. Till now, we've not even had a concrete, will I say, proof of what the set of the panel set up for that investigation. Up to now, that is still in the limbo. And you're coming to tell Nigerians to come out and then speak against the government, a government that throws peanuts to them at any little agitation that they want to come to quell them.
Can I take the liberty of this moment to say my view about the SARS protest?
Please do.
The SARS protest was up to 60% popular and effective. But what was wrong with the SARS protest was that it wasn't galvanized state by state, so that every sector, every region feels the heat. The SARS protest virtually happened in Lagos, where the military used their illegal boats to quell it, because it didn't come to conclusion. They didn't allow it to fuel. But in France, in other civilized climes, provided that these people are not destructive, provided that these people are not killing people, provided there is no violence. The SARS protest did not come with violence. These are people who were buying pure water, buying water on the road, sleeping over. In all the worlds we watch on the television, at least, we see people protest. And the state, the institutions, the police forces, make sure they don't move outside. They watch on the sidelines. And what do they have? They don't carry guns. Because these are citizens. You don't shoot. But in Nigeria, it's otherwise. The SARS is the mother force that triggered the revolution that we saw in the last election. So you don't put it away, you don't condemn it as something that is not historically relevant. It is a seed that has been sown. It will germinate someday. It is that seed that propelled the LP candidate to spread his weight across the nation, even though I cannot say that he won on the basis that the matter is in court. But we know that the effect of that youth enthusiasm was galvanized in the voting pattern we saw in the election.
All right, you really tried to give us a good analysis concerning the sacrifices and whose responsibility is it to actually sacrifice. You've talked about the citizenry, the citizen being active. Yes, proactive, participating in whatever is happening in governance. Of course, we have been bedeviled with a lot of insecurity in the country. Talking about kidnapping. Just yesterday, we still saw the news where a redeemed pastor was killed and 5 others abducted from the church where they are holding their vigils. And then we have pockets of robbery here and there, terrorism everywhere. Now, we have new service chiefs appointed by the president, and he also gave them this ultimatum that they should go and end insecurity. We are talking about better Nigeria. We are talking about sacrifices. When it comes to insecurity in our country, do we leave the sacrifices to the military chiefs? Do we leave it alone for them to handle? Whose responsibility it is to make sure that we have a secured and a working nation?
Thank you very much. Yeah, on insecurity in Nigeria, I am certain that those security chiefs, at the federal level, they have a lot of roles to play. I think it was the police chief that said that it's like a lion that if he comes out now, anybody he sees that is doing anything in Nigeria that is wrong is going to devour that person. That was his statement, you know. So you know, as we are looking, you know, at him, that what he said, he is going to do it. So from that federal level, they have a lot of responsibility. But coming down to the grassroots, the people, we and every other citizen, supposed to be a security agent. We should be security agents. And the Nigerians are doing it to a large extent. But I think that over the years and by the previous governments, that the federal government are sabotaging the security of this country. Because the Boko Haram, they told us Boko Haram will be wiped under one year by the Buhari administration. Up to today, Boko Haram is still there. They kidnapped the Chibok girls, the other girls, and all that, and everywhere. So it didn't work out. And we always had the news that Boko Haram is being sponsored by either by the army, they gave them a helicopter, gave them the other one and the other one. We have the bandits. All these things were promises that all these things will be stopped within 1 year of Buhari administration. But all those things lasted with Buhari. Instead of stopping them, we see killings everywhere. The headsmen up to the east here, they were killing people. In the west, they were killing people everywhere, and people, a lot of lives were lost. The food insecurity we're having in Nigeria today is because of these Fulani headsmen, the bandits, you know, and the Boko Haram. Because people were no longer going to the farms to farm. So as a result, we're having, you know, food insecurity in Nigeria today. A tuber of yam now that is sizable could cost as high as 1,000 naira, which used to be about 400, 300, and so on. It is in Nigeria, in later, within the Buhari administration, that we saw a cup of rice at 150 naira, 200 naira, even when the rice is local. A cup of beans that used to be 30 naira went as high as 130 naira. You know, so all these things are, you know, what we see, and, you know, pointing to the fact that the federal government actually wasn't fighting these Boko Haram and bandits and all these people that are terrorizing the nation. But I want to tell you that if you come down to the villages, if you come down to the towns, you see the security, what we call the vigilante people. The vigilante people are there working. We see the musketeers in the villages and towns. You know, they are all there. They are there working. So the people, the masses, are trying, you know, to the best of their ability. But the federal government was sabotaging the issue because these are people in the local areas. They don't have enough or sophisticated weapons like those bandits and the headsmen and Boko Haram. So, for sure, if this new administration, if they are serious with fighting insecurity, certainly insecurity will be brought to the lowest, you know, ebb. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I want to say a very big thank you to both of you for joining us on the show this morning. Barrister Chris Arokwe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
Also, Ichie Mike Odumodu, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Of course, if you have listened to our discussion this morning, you understand that this sacrifice that we are talking about is our different responsibilities. We are not just leaving it for the leaders alone or leaving it for the military men alone. We all are in this, so we have to put our hands together and work and see that we have a more secured and a working nation. My name is Chidinma Awanwa. Thank you so much for joining us.
And now, Majulu Chukwuka, we're saying keep a date with us tomorrow when we come back on Good Morning Anambra. Bye for now.